Hey everybody, John chapter 2 is our key passage for today. I need your Bibles open there as we continue to explore John's Gospel, lesson number 4, that you may believe. We have talked a wide variety of things already about Jesus's identity. We learned a lot about who he is as John introduces him in John chapter 1. Now, we've heard a couple of times already, but I would love to draw your attention today to this really important word. We're going to hear it a couple of times in John chapter 2. I want you to be on the lookout for how John uses the word signs. After all, this is why he is writing. Right? We have reminded ourselves a couple of times of his mission statement toward the end of the gospel in John chapter 20, verses 30 and 31. Now, Jesus did many other signs, which are not written in this book, but these signs that he did in the presence of his disciples, these are written. John has recorded them for us so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing, you may have life in his name. So let's talk about the very first of his signs that Jesus does up here in the city of Cana. We'll come back to this map many times. You see the Mediterranean Sea, you see the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River leading all the way down to the Dead Sea. We're meeting Jesus up here in Cana of Galilee. Let's pick it up in John chapter 2, verse 1. On the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus was also invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does that have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, John tells us there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim, and he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. When the master of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." Water turned into wine. John tells us in verse 11, this, the first of his, notice how John describes this miracle. It was a sign. The first of Jesus's signs that he did at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory. We'll come back to this statement because it's really, really important. For now, I want you to notice the effect of the sign. And his disciples believed in him. John tells us in verse 12, after this, he went down from Cana to Capernaum with his mother and his brothers and his disciples, and they stayed there on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee for a few days, but it wasn't very long. The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem, up in elevation, up to the mountains, the mount where Jerusalem was built. And that's where we pick up with him in John chapter 2, verse 14. In the temple in Jerusalem, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons and the money changers sitting there. And making a cord of whips, Jesus drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen, and he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembered that it was written somewhere in our Old Testaments. We'll go hunting for that as a class, but they remembered a long time ago in the Hebrew Scriptures, it had been written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." So the Jews said to Jesus, "What sign do you show us for doing these things?" And how did Jesus respond? "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews then said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days?" But John wants to make sure we understand something. He clues us in. Jesus was speaking about the temple of his body. When therefore he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scriptures and the word that Jesus had spoken. Now, when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many believed in his name when they saw the signs that he was doing. If there is a key word for us in John chapter 2, surely that's it, the signs that Jesus did. But Jesus on his part did not entrust himself to them because he knew all people and needed no one to bear witness about man, for he himself knew what was in man. What were these signs? What did they mean? What do they show us about Jesus so that we might believe just like those people who did in the first century? Thank you so much for being in class today. Hope I've set you up for good discussion, that you have a great rest of your class and a great start to this new week.